We didn't discuss the Radners thing. We didn't discuss that.
Yep, we can.
We somehow discussed the information that's included in your packet about the Radners bill. If you remember, we discussed this at last meeting. We were charged $15,295 for transportation for one student, $3,011, I think, for tuition. We agreed to pay the tuition. Barbara since contacted Radners, and
I've been in nearly daily contact with lots of people at Radners, and we have a letter dated April 7th addressed to me, and my proposal, pending board support of that, was that the district would pay half of the transportation costs instead of the $15,295 that the district, if the board would approve that, would pay half of it. And you can see in their letter that they're not willing to accept that. They go into great detail to explain the formula that's used and give route examples for students, and then further to the back give route examples for both SAC and to Walleye to Auburn. The student from the SAC district exited the program at the end of the semester, transferred to the Southern Cal School District, was out of school for a period of time, and we just got a request for his record. He'll be re-entering school at Southern Cal. So he now lives in the Southern Cal School District. The Walleye to Auburn student, and Walleye to Auburn paid both the tuition and the transportation costs. The SAC student was there 90 days. That's what this bill is. And I think the WLVA student entered there about the second quarter, which was 43 days billing, which would make it about a quarter of the first semester. The student from Walleye to Auburn is open enrolled back into the Carroll School District. So lived in Carroll, moved to Auburn, open enrolled back. But because he's a special ed student, Walleye to Auburn's responsible for expenses related to his education. Through all of this conversation, and I think it's just like daily, I've shared this with John about what's going on. All of a sudden someone discovered that the student from Walleye to Auburn wasn't living in Auburn anymore. We got a route set up. We found a driver that came back from Arizona. We were going to share a route with Southern Cal. We'd go over, pick up. Our kid would ride up in the morning, and we'd send somebody over at 6 o'clock at night to pick up a couple of their kids as well as one of ours, and we could do it for half the cost. We were within less than 24 hours of ready to do that, and I happened to be talking to this gal, just kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's about that, and she said, oh, because I said we can't get a hold of the parent to answer the phone and to let them know exactly what time we'll pick up and deliver. And I said, I know it's confidential, but can you give me any of this information? And she said, well, he lives at a youth shelter in Fort Dodge that's 2 miles from Radners. I said, really? And you had us sign all the paperwork, and I'd sort of taken an oath earlier in the week that I wasn't going to get mad about things. I shared that with John. That I was going to be just as calm and as low-key and professional as I could about all of this. And so I told her, I said, you're really lucky, because earlier in the week I sort of made an oath to myself that I was going to be very under control about all of this. She kind of laughed, and I thought, oh, little did she know that I really meant that. But I said, well, so what's the bill for driving back and forth to Radners for this 2 miles? And she didn't know. So she found out, and it was $38 a day or something round trip. And she said, well, why don't you still have Southern Cal pick up your student at the youth shelter in Fort Dodge? And I said, do you know where Lake City is? And do you know where Lakeview and Sac City and the youth shelter? And she's like, no. And I said, well, you really should learn the counties that you serve, because that's really embarrassing that you would suggest that we have to go into Fort Dodge to pick up the kid. So we kind of get through all that. We rip all the paperwork up, call Southern Cal and say, forget the plan, you're on your own again. Come to find out, last week, Walleye to Auburn had another student that's now been placed at Radners. So then we called Southern Cal back and said, well, you talked to us earlier, would you now want to be in agreement with us about another kid that we're going to be sending? So starting today, second student from Walleye Auburn is going there, and we are sharing transportation. So in the mornings, we deliver to Southern Cal, and he gets in the van with their 5 or 6 kids. Just to, because part of these kids have to be there by 7:45, so it's called a Daily Choices program, and then some kids come home regular school day, and some stay longer. All of our kids, the East Sac County kids, had to start early and stay late. So then what the driver from Walleye Auburn has agreed to do is he'll take the van, head up to nearly to Fort Dodge, which is where Ravner's is, and he'll pick up the 2 Southern Cal kids and the Walleye Auburn kid and bring them both back. And so in splitting that, we reduced the transportation costs by 50%. So I sent an email to Ravner's today just verifying that our student, is coming, and I will have 2. And she said, oh, no, she said that kid that had been in the youth shelter has now been placed. She said, I don't know where. And I said, well, still agreeing to my own agreement that I would be gone. And I just said, who would I talk to find out where he's going to go? So later she emailed and said he'll be sent to Woodward, he'll be residential. He's special ed, so we'll be responsible for his education, but there'll be no transportation costs. And we won't have to pay anything for residential, but we're still running a van to Ravner's for one kid. They don't want just half. Part of their issue when I was on the phone with them is that if we do half for you, we're going to do half for everybody, and it's not a negotiation. These are our costs. This is how we figure it. Here's the mathematics of it. And I said, well, I understand the mathematics of it. I just think that the mathematics are based on numbers that aren't fair to school districts. I can do the math. That is the part that I didn't get. So I don't know what you want as a district or what you want me to do. I would say any further correspondence will not result in any reduction of the fee. That's my understanding.
I did take notice of the fact that they sent you the Ravner Center agreement, and it was signed on December 4th. And I also noted that they started charging us on August 24th.
Yep.
So, if they charged us from August until December 4th, the rates that they wanted to before they sent the agreement. And I can tell you, I put a phone call into Senator Rich Olive, who's the head of the Legislative Oversight Committee today. So he has a voicemail there waiting for him to get back to me. I think this is just good.
Well, we haven't paid them. So you haven't paid a penny to them for transportation. You agreed this month to pay the tuition, and that was in the board bill. So you paid the tuition, but you have not written them a check for this. Other superintendents that I've talked to in other districts have just given up on it. This is how it is, and so this is what they pay. And when I talked to the superintendent at Southern Cal, he said, yeah, we can share if we can find a driver. He said, Barb, I've just practically given up on trying to figure out how to do it differently. Because he said, it's sort of the scenario like I just quoted you. There's somebody there, then they're out, and they go to another district, and somebody moves in, and they open and roll back out, and then they're placed somewhere, and then they're from January, February, and until the 8th of March, this kid must have been in the youth shelter, and Walleye Auburn was never notified. My issue is not only the cost. Mine is we are the district that's responsible for these kids. We do get weekly reports. Every week I would email this guy and say the weekly report never came, and then the weekly report has never come, and the weekly report has never come. So last week, I finally found this person to talk to, and she said, well, I'm in charge of the weekly reports, but we've been really busy. And I said, don't tell me about being busy. Don't talk to me about being busy.